Welcome everyone to Salesforce AI Use Cases by Everpeak. I'm your host, Amber Martinez. Today we're going to be helping you get up to speed on the AI tools that are reshaping how teams work inside of Salesforce. I have Jordan Linville here as our speaker for today. He's a partner at Everpeak and has long-term experience helping high-growth B2B companies drive predictable revenue across the lead to cash lifecycle. Some housekeeping items. Today, we're going to be going towards the end of the webinar. We're going to open up the floor for Q&A. So as we go throughout the webinar, feel free to drop your comments, your questions in the chat, or into the Q&A section right next to it. So without further ado, Jordan, take it away.
Amber, thanks so much. Everyone, thanks for joining us on a Friday. We know you have lots of things you could be doing. We'll try to move really quickly here, and as Amber said, Q&A at the end. So as questions come up, just drop them in on the right little chat icon, and we'll address them at the end. Today, it's all about AI, but it's all about AI on the Salesforce platform. There is obviously a ton of noise around AI in general, and I think for Salesforce customers and people considering Salesforce, this really hones the conversation, the use cases that can make sense. Quickly, a little bit about me. I'm a partner at Everpeak, been here for 3 years. Everpeak's been around since 2017, helping companies with Salesforce and revenue operations, and now increasingly AI. Before Everpeak, I led sales at a company called PubMatic. So like many of you, I was in the sales seat leading a team. We had a world-class tech stack, all the tools you could want, evaluated way more. And what I found from that experience, having the tools only gets you so far. We had a huge team of developers that could have built anything we wanted, but using the tools in the right way, that's really where RevOps comes in, where agencies like Everpeak come in, because it's hard. And with us, we had Salesforce, we had it for years, but we were really using it almost like a Rolodex. Contacts were out there, many of the contacts that were out of date. And we found that you'd go in and check, you'd track some activity in meetings, but we really weren't bringing it to its full potential. And now with AI, that becomes very, very important, because if the data is bad, you can't really use the AI tools that are built in. Also found that technology does not fix problems. It accelerates them. And AI takes this to the next level. Any tool that you use, any AI tool off the shelf or custom dev, is just going to help you do what you're already doing faster. And if that's the right direction, you're going to get there faster. If it's the wrong direction, you're going to go in the wrong direction faster. So really important to get those underlying processes and data correct. And where we've seen really interesting AI use cases is lots of areas, but on the GTM motion, research, outreach, pipeline hygiene, and even sales coaching. Those are use cases that I think with most B2B companies, they tend to look somewhat similar. So think of the GTM motion like a funnel. You've probably seen these terms, MQL. It's marketing qualified lead. Then that person becomes a sales qualified lead with some kind of expression of interest. At that point, a sales rep spends time with talking to that person, tags an opportunity in Salesforce, and eventually the opportunity is either closed as lost or won, and they become a customer. At that point, they get the sales handoff over to customer success, and hopefully you turn them into a net promoter who not only expands revenue with your company, but also refers others. But this motion is fairly similar across B2B companies. And I think that's why we've seen such cool AI use cases in this particular area of business. So 71% of organizations today have used generative AI in some capacity. That is up from 52% a year ago. And I'm not sure what it was the year before, but I bet it was pretty small. So you're just seeing tons of growth in companies using and experimenting with AI. Only 1% actually describe it as advanced. So what you're also seeing is what we call pilot paralysis. There's a pilot that happens, maybe there's some cool tools, but it doesn't really have the ROI where they can say, yes, we want to use this, or it doesn't really fit into their workflow where it makes sense and they can easily have customers adopt it. This is the advantage that Salesforce and Salesforce customers have. The platform is already built into your workflows, into your data, and hopefully it's being adopted by the team already. And so how we think of Salesforce, we're going to go to 3 specific tools. There are more AI tools within the Salesforce platform. They've invested a ton of money and resources. But these 3 you hear about a lot, and they have great GTM use cases around them. Number 1 is Einstein. So think of this kind of as the AI layer baked into the whole Salesforce platform. It has a few products within it itself, but it's going to touch a lot of different things that you can do within Salesforce. Agentforce, same thing, but it's going to be more of an LLM. So when you think about ChatGPT, type it in the things that you want to know. That's a little bit like Agentforce. It's like a chat dialogue that you can type in, and it could be from a customer typing in, or it could be an internal employee. Agentforce gets a ton of marketing around it, but there are so many other tools within Salesforce to look at. And then finally, Slack. You've probably heard of Slack, maybe even using it. It is going to have a lot of baked in AI tools right out of the box. You don't need a firm like Everpeak to set them up. And then it's going to have a bunch of sort of master's class tools that you can then integrate with the larger Salesforce org and get even better data, even better AI. So without further ado, we are going to jump right in to Einstein. Einstein has Einstein for Sales, which is a really cool product. We're going to also go more into Einstein Conversational Insights. That's ECI for short. And with every one of these use cases, we're going to talk about a specific client that Everpeak worked with on that product. So this was a PE-backed healthcare company. A lot of their reps were using video calls, specifically on the MS Teams platform, and only about 28% of those calls actually got logged. So, picture a rep doing a million different things. They log on to MS Teams. They then have to go into Salesforce, make sure all the contacts were in that meeting, log the meeting, type what they wanted. And it's just difficult. Salespeople don't like to do it, but it was causing huge problems. A lot of difficulty and accountability, making sure A, the meetings were happening, and B, the action steps after those meetings were then advancing. Second, team collaboration was just really inefficient. Without knowing the content of those meetings, they had a weekly call with all their people in the field, and those calls were often fairly inefficient, often went too long, and the information just wasn't in a larger system to look at. And then finally, management had the same problems. They couldn't look at that information, so they relied on their one-on-one meetings to get that info, and there was no central repository. So ECI, we'll give you a screenshot of what it looks like. It's in the Salesforce org as an object that has this video. You can look at the actual video call. So if there's anything you need to refer back to, it's right there. But the whole transcript is to the right, including an AI summary. This all happens automatically. So a rep can have the call. It can be on Teams. It can be on Zoom. It can be on Gmeet. And it's all going to show up in Salesforce. Not only show up, it's going to be tagged to the right people that were on that calendar invite. So the company, the contacts, as long as they're in Salesforce already, they're going to show up on that ECI object. So huge time saver for reps, huge value for management to be able to see what's on that meeting, the next steps, and then also for the team to know what happened. And then finally, on the left, if you can see that there, it's insights. This is my favorite feature on ECI. It will actually give you coaching insights as if you had a sales assistant listening to the call. What can we do better? What can we improve? So this is not necessarily out of the box. We tweaked a few things, including the AI summary, but we've got that locked in to do every time ECI is deployed. And they went to 88% of meetings being logged. So unless it was on the client's Zoom, as long as it was the Zoom or the Teams that they own, so whatever that meeting platform is that you use, it's going to show up. So it was a huge advance, about 4x. They had the coaching and the insights, which helped their team get better. And they were able to tie this to close rates. So if the meeting was happening, that correlated obviously to if a deal was going to close. Historically, this team is sort of an influence sale. So they don't actually sell, they're selling to a partner that then makes the sale. But they found that was highly correlated to not only did the meeting happen, but when did the meeting happen in relation to getting that business referred. So they were able to really tighten up their forecasting, knowing that these meetings were happening and then knowing the content of the meetings. As ECI is also included in a lot of the packages like Financial Services Cloud. So you may have it and actually not even have to pay anything extra to use it. Next, Agentforce. Mark Benioff likes to joke that Salesforce might actually change its name to Agentforce. That's how many resources that they are putting into this and how bullish they are. The use case that usually gets discussed, though, is sort of a customer chat bot, which is really interesting. A lot of B2B businesses have a ticketing system that can benefit, but a lot don't. A lot don't just have the volume to take a ticket all the way from an agent to being fulfilled without a person in between. Super cool, but may not be relevant. The use case that we're going to go into is specific to a verticalized software company that didn't have any ticketing process, but they had sales, marketing, customer success, all using Salesforce. They relied heavily on a team of Salesforce administrators, as well as a few fractional ones like Everpeak. And they had difficulty because so much information was in different silos. So they had 360-degree view of the customer that took a lot of manual work, taking emails, taking exports from different systems, including Salesforce, and getting those into spreadsheets, and then having to analyze the data. Really time consuming and then prone to human errors. Finally, they had a pretty expensive tech stack, a lot of different tools, and again, fairly disjointed because these are all plugging into Salesforce, relying on the system to work. Agentforce was able to help with all of this. On the right side is the dialogue that you see on Agentforce, regardless of how you use it. This was specifically for internal employees, not for customers, to use within Salesforce. And with that, they were able to ask any kind of question they wanted. And think about it, Agentforce almost like ChatGPT. You can look out across data, you can ask it whatever question you want. It's going to pull that data as if you were talking to a real person. The advantage here is that it's pulling Salesforce data. So any kind of questions about opportunity close rates, any kind of questions about insights from conversations or summaries around certain conversations, it can pull all of that and then even do some agentic stuff too. Here are a few examples of questions. Which opportunities this month change stages? Sometimes that's a little hard to find. Which customers are most likely to churn? That is very hard to find. But when you have all the info from emails, you have all the info from, you can get that kind of sentiment analysis with Agentforce. What are current sales commissions by rep? As long as that's in the system, Salesforce has a tool called Spiff for commissions, which is awesome. But any kind of information around commissions that you have in Salesforce, Agentforce can then look at and report back. And then finally, which prospects are most likely to convert? So kind of the inverse of churn, where are we having great conversations, where have the stages moved, and then based off historical data of your sales cycle, and which are the clients that are most likely to convert this month. So that verticalized software use case resulted probably most glaring, the 42% reduction in customer churn. They had a ton of benefits as far as increasing revenue and close rates, but the biggest one was this 42%. They were able to identify customers that could churn, get in front of it, and then keep that from happening. They were also able to save a ton of time. Couldn't quantify this exactly, but getting that 360-degree view in seconds, not hours, not data exports, it was not only quicker, but it was going to be more accurate. And finally, they were able to save $80,000 in the first year just by not using some of the other tools or downgrading their licenses. And this is an annual savings. So that's going to be in perpetuity going forward. So think about that kind of savings when you think about Agentforce and whatever cost in implementing it and using it. Last but not least, Slack. Pretty much everyone's heard of Slack at this point. Went gangbusters during the pandemic as teams went remote. Most people still think of it as like a Microsoft Teams competitor or even a Google Chat competitor. It's not. It does so much more than just chat. So let's get into it. We had a high growth VC-backed company, it was financial services space. They used Slack for a couple of years and they had a ton of channels. It was the main communication channel throughout the company. And this was based in San Francisco, but lots of employees in lots of different areas. So online chat, hugely important. Their difficulties were again silos. So you have data in Slack and really conversations in Slack. You have others in Jira, and then you have Salesforce data. Getting all that information together and really being able to synthesize it was difficult. They also had a lot of time being spent on meeting prep by the sales team. So not only did they have to look at those past conversations and try to understand it, but then they also went out and were looking, has this company had anything in the news cycle? Has this company had any new hires? Anything we should be aware of going into this meeting? So that took quite a bit of time. Finally, there was a lot of manual work just to keep the Salesforce contact info current. This is not a unique problem to them. This is everybody. Nobody likes to go into their CRM and update contacts and say this person's left the company, or here's the phone number that was in their email signature. Really, we should put in there. But it's a pain. You have to go in and you have to do something. So not unique to them, but a problem in keeping their Salesforce info updated. Slack was able to help with all this. Number one, workflows. This is a Slack feature that's existed for quite a few years, but you can tie these workflows and automations into Salesforce. So think of things like meeting prep, fantastic with AI, being able to pull all that information together, but you can also make it actually work with your Salesforce org. So new leads that come in, you can get a ping on a channel, see that person, and then people can reach out even quicker. Deal approvals. Think about like a deal desk. You want to make sure that you have the right pricing, the right terms. And instead of having all that live in email, you can have a Slack channel where your people that do the deal desk operations can look at that as soon as that contract goes out or is even drafted and make sure everything is simpatico before sending it to the customer. So those are workflows. Slack AI, that tool came out a couple of years ago, and it's gotten better and better every year. Right away, you have channel summaries. So if you have 70 channels with tons of historical information and context between teams, you can ask for a quick summary the last week, the last month, whatever you need, and you'll get that instantly. There's recaps, which is kind of a cool feature with videos that people can use. And then there's Slackbot. So Slackbot is the AI tool with the Business Plus and the Enterprise Plus accounts, where you can start to see not only all those channel summaries, but also information from Salesforce that you're going to pull in. You can ask about opportunities, and you can start to change some things within your Salesforce org right from Slackbot. There's also third-party tools. We actually have one called Sidekick. So Sidekick can take any kind of an email that you get, you can forward it, or you can paste it into Slack and change contacts and append information. So a good use case would be if you're a rep out in the field, as these guys had, you get a new contact and you want to change it in Salesforce, you want to add it or maybe append it, maybe add like a email address or phone number. You can do that from the Slack app, which is really easy to use, and you don't actually have to log into Salesforce. You can do it on the go, and you can even customize skills. So maybe you're in a zip code and you want to know all the customers within a 20-mile radius. You can ask that of Sidekick, and it'll pull that information and give it back. So tons of really cool things that you can do with Slack, both out of the box and then with some small customizations or tweaks. So we flew through there. Those were 3 use cases, though, on the Salesforce platform. None that are particularly heavy lifts, but all of them that I would consider advanced, way past that 1% stat we saw earlier, and none of them that are gonna break the bank. If you'd like to learn more about how these use cases might apply for your business with Salesforce, we have an AI and a RepOps assessment. You can do this and get it for free if you've been on this webinar. Just click the link on the slides that send out after this. You'll go to a form, mention the webinar, and we'll get that done for you at no cost. Amber, back to you. Have we had any questions during that those slides that I rifled through?
Yes, we have a couple. So we have the first one. Do you think Einstein can replace Fathom AI note taker? We currently pay for Fathom, but curious if they are compatible.
Yeah, they definitely are compatible. I mean, you can make Fathom notes go straight into Salesforce. They're not going to have a lot of the advantages that ECI has. Fathom does actually record video, so that's one nice thing. A lot of the note takers don't, like Granola. ECI does, but where I think it actually makes the most sense, use ECI as kind of your default. You don't have to have a note taker join the meeting, which is always a little weird, especially if like 5 people with 5 note takers. Where Fathom would come in, or Firefly's insert your note taker, is if your client sends the meeting invite, they own it, and you want to have that note taker join that. That way, it still gets into Salesforce. You still have all that data. It's just going to be a meeting that's third party, not one that you own. So yeah, I think there's a place for the note takers, even if you're using ECI.
Awesome. Next question and last question is, how long of a setup time do you estimate for Einstein, Slack, and Agentforce?
We'll take those one at a time. Einstein, that is a very quick setup. Again, people have this in their licenses and don't even know it. It's already under the hood. So just getting that set up with whatever your video platform is, that's hours, not days or weeks. So very, very easy to start trying to use that. We'll do Slack. We'll go out of order. So Slack also very easy, probably even easier because it's out of the box. You have Slackbot, you have channel summaries. The only time where you have a little bit of configuration work is where you want to try to tap into the Salesforce organization that you have and all that data, as well as maybe some third-party tools like Sidekick. Again, though, we're talking hours, and we're talking not a lot of cost to be able to use that. Agentforce is the one that probably takes more setup and more cost because it's going to be so specific to your needs and your use case. We've seen very large projects that really get into saving tons and tons of time from customer service and huge value, and we've seen very lightweight ones. But I would suspect that you're going to want to have like at least a 2 to 3 week runtime to get it set up, use it, tweak it, and then adopt it and get that out to the entire team. So a little bit more involved on Agentforce.
Amazing. All righty. Well, thank you, Jordan. And thank you everyone for joining today. As Jordan mentioned, as a thank you for being on today's webinar, you will be receiving a link in a follow-up email shortly. And in order to receive that complimentary RevOps assessment, just let us know that you attended today's webinar in the form that you're going to be going over to from that link. And keep an eye out for it. Let us know if you have any questions or comments from today's webinar. And we're so grateful you joined. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.